welcome to the best of everything. I am Ruben Paul. It is Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Man, all the days run together.
You're thinking of Ruby Tuesday already.
Hey man, I'm waiting to get back. But it is Wednesday. I believe it's what's the date?
June 10th.
Of 10th of the 10th of June, and I'm excited to be back. We had some technical difficulties last week, but we are back. Of course, with my right-hand man, my brother from another mother, the one and only Mr. Johnny Sanchez. What up, Johnny? How you doing, brother?
How are you? Good to be back. Good to be back, by the way.
Yeah, man.
And I had a lot of people asking me last week, what happened? They get used to watching us, whether they're on their commute or they're at home or they're whatever, So, yeah.
Well,
sorry we missed, but we're back.
Yeah, it was. It's been challenging doing these shows not in the studio and during this COVID time. So anyway, good to be back, and we have a very special guest, someone that I've known for a very long time. Wonderful writer, actor. You've seen him on the show 24 Legacy. He was recently in the film Black and Blue. One of the coolest brothers I know. We're going to have a good time today with the one, the only, Mr. James Moses Black. What's up, my brother?
Wow. That was like I was running from the police,
How you doing, James?
Hey, how you guys? Johnny, how you doing? Ruben, how you
doing?
Good.
I'm good, man.
So during this conversation, you'll hear me call James Black a lot because that's what I usually call him. I call him Black. That's his last name. He is Black. And he's very accomplished, man. How you holding up in this heat today out here in LA, man?
Well, it's I went out the house Ethiopian. I came back Nigerian, so pretty hot out there, man. It's pretty hot outside. No activities for me out there, man.
So let's there's so much we can talk about, man. I believe the first place we met. Do you remember the first place we met?
Lifetime Fitness.
No, 24-hour fitness.
Oh, okay. 20. I thought it was okay. Well, a gym. How about that?
We was at 24-hour fitness, man, and we was working out. We just struck up a conversation at the gym, and then we've been friends ever since, man. We would meet at the gym, work out, talk shop, and James used to do stand up at one point.
Okay.
We talked about that, but then he kind of dove into the acting, into the writing, full on. But one thing I wanted to start off with that I thought was fascinating with James when I first met him is he pretended to be his own agent in this town.
Right.
And I think at the time I even had you represent me for a minute.
Yeah, I was representing you on a couple of things. Yeah, right.
So James, tell us, where did that idea come from? Was it birthed out of frustration? I'm sure it was birthed out of frustration at the same time, and just the mindset that I know about you is you're a hustler, man, and you're not going to take no for an answer. But tell us how that came about with you representing yourself, and if you want, you could tell us what the name of your agency was.
Yeah, I can tell you now.
Oh, I was going to ask that too.
Yeah, it was called Hawkins Entertainment. But dude's name was Ed Hawkins. I was trying to figure out a simple name for a boring person, but who just knew his stuff. But Hawkins was my cousin's name, and they were always entertaining. Like when we moved from Philly to Pittsburgh, we stayed in the projects with my aunt and her kids, and their names was Hawkins. And these two cats was always performing, man. So I said, I'm gonna call it Hawkins Entertainment, right? And then that's when they had the breakdowns floating around, right? They still do to an extent, but I don't think anybody uses them. and I would call up and pitch myself. Hey, this is Ed Hawkins from Hawkins Entertainment. Just calling about one of my clients, James Moses Blunt. Oh yeah, we know James. Yeah, good. So and they would just like bring me in.
There was never your voice. I mean, obviously you altered it a little bit, but nobody.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, right, yep. Yeah.
What was your Ed Hawkins voice? What was that voice?
I can't even remember. It was something like, "Hey, this is Ed Hawkins from Hawkins Entertainment. How are you? Good. Hey, I got my client James Moses." I was like, "Yeah, I was gone, bro." Ed. I figured that was a harmless name.
Yeah, it totally works. It totally. Now, were you trying to portray him in any, whether was he white or black or nothing? What was?
Ed didn't have a nationality.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was.
A phone call. He was a phone call.
Yeah.
That it was only the other person on the line was it was up to them to say whether Ed was black or white.
Yeah. Right.
They knew his client was black, but
yeah,
that's it.
But did they? What about when I've always been fascinated by this. Ruben and I know a few people who've done this for themselves, comics, and what happens when there's got to be a return phone call to Hawkins' agency? In other words, hey, we're gonna submit him. We're gonna submit James for this. We'll be getting back to you about this. Or was it strictly emails at that point? Or did you have to answer? Did you have a separate phone? Is what I basically.
Oh, the pitching was just the pitching, and then they would call in, and then everything else was handled either. I'd have my secretary call back. But she had another line. Her name. She lives in Birmingham now. She runs a kids camp, an acting camp that's pretty successful. So they would call her back, and she'd get on the phone and be like,
but how would she know when she was supposed to answer Ed Hawkins' agency?
I would just tell her. I was like, if you get this call from this number,
area code or
just answer Hawkins Entertainment.
It's so good.
Yeah,
I remember like being frustrated and me and James would be talking at the gym. He'd like, "Hey man, fuck it, I represent you, man." I'm like, "You represent me?" He's like, "Dude, come over to the crib." And I don't know if you remember me coming to your place.
Yeah.
He's like, "Bring me your headshots." He's like, "Bring me everything." And he was like, I'll represent you, man. He goes, "I'll submit myself. I'll just submit you too."
Yeah.
And I just found it fascinating because I've always heard of people doing that. We have a mutual friend that used to book himself at comedy clubs, with the same thing. And he went as far as he got a fake photo, a generic photo,
website.
He had a website with the guy's, face on it and the whole, but it was him doing everything. And before we got on air, and this is leading me to the, one of the many topics that we'll talk about is how Hollywood is changing. And you were telling me about an article. What was the name of that article you were telling me about?
It's called the Death and Rebirth of Hollywood.
Okay.
It's an article that explores the role of the agent, which seems to be going away, and the manager and the producer becoming, the sort of the signature powerhouse, and more jobs for actors and writers just because of the content exploding. I mean, the need for content exploding. So, it's and the WGA and everything that's going on with writers and stuff like that. But it really said that there are some things in Hollywood, such as agents. Not all agents, but the majority of them are going to go away. And you can see people are closing agencies, letting people go, because they're streamlining. In an effort to be consistent with the industry.
Well, James, let me ask you this: with agents going away, and like
not all agents,
obviously not all agents, but with a lot of agencies going away, with a lot of actors not being represented, and like you said, years ago when you had your Ed Hawkins agency, the breakdowns are handled a little differently now. How would an actor, for the actors out there who are listening to this and who may be watching, how would an actor go about now submitting themselves and getting those opportunities without an agent?
That is a very good question. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I look at it now as that any actor should be. Listen. I want to act. At the end of the day, I want to be an actor. I want to do. But you've got to build yourself a legitimate nest of content. You can be the actor. You can have a friend that's a director. You can have a friend that's a producer. But you got to come up with people who are coming up with you. And this was told to me by a good friend of mine, Chris Henchy, because I was trying to get on board with Chris Henchy and
I know Chris Henchy.
Right. So
yeah.
At the time, maybe 10 years ago, he said, James, man, I came up with Piedmont, Farrell, Adam McKay, a couple of cats. He said, I just can't bring you in. Your game is to build your own camp and bring in your director, your writer, your actor, and you all build. And in that way, you're not just focusing on acting. You have writing, you have director stuff. So there's more people you can get to when you're just not a singularity proponent. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just not into one phase.
Yeah, because if you're creating your own projects and you're with the writers and with the directors and you're writing, then it automatically gives you access to those rooms you want to get into, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and that's the way for me that if I had to do this again, I would be sort of my own content-based company first, because I meet a lot of people. I know a lot of people, meet a lot of people, and those relationships are just now coming to fruition. People that I met like 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
And Johnny, you had something?
Oh no, I was just gonna say for it's a little different for a lot of them now, because with LA Casting and Casting Frontier and Casting Networks or whatever, along with IMDb Pro, I mean, some of they can submit themselves. I mean, we were able to submit the stuff sometimes in, what was it, Backstage West, or there was a variety other things that were out there. It was the different way to submit when we were starting out. But I feel like that's one great thing for the actors with technology now is, granted it's going to be mainly non-union stuff, but man, there's, they can submit themselves to it. But I also agree that doing things with the people that are around with you is a great way to get those real, like if you know a producer or director or something, that's right, Ruben. Doing those projects with people that is.
Well, I think Issa Rae said something very similar about network with the people next to you, and that's what she did. Like every production she's done, she has her own show, Insecure, on HBO. She talked about how the people that she used to do her web series with are now working on her show with her. So they kind of just were self-sufficient, creating projects, and it's almost like the old that old baseball movie with Kevin Costner. Like, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Field of Dreams.
I think if you create your own projects, then that, like James said, it makes you more viable. And that's one thing that I can say for me with this quarantine that has been a blessing is, you're kind of stuck, and it eliminates the excuses. So now it forces you to create, and you start seeing the people that you start surrounding yourself with when you are creating your own projects, that you can, come up together and have those contacts that you never, utilized before. When you're creating something, it's like, hey man, I know a showrunner. We should take this project to this showrunner. Or, hey dude, I know this director. He would love this. We should send this to him and have him read it. And now all of a sudden, this director, hey, I know this casting director. We can have them help cast this thing. So now you've built this network just from sitting down and writing and creating something. And now a casting director who can bring you in on future projects, who can introduce you to different casting directors, who can introduce you to different producers, et cetera, et cetera. So I know, especially when you've been in the business a long time, one thing that me and Johnny has always talked about is a lot of people are like, oh, we've seen him already. Oh, we already know what he does. So instead, when you're creating your own thing, you can reinvent yourself. You can put out the images that you want of yourself. You can write yourself in the roles that you would like to play. Instead of going, hey, cast me in this, give me a chance at this. It's different than go, hey, look at this reel of me playing, a gangster. Look at me, this role of me playing a cop. Look at this role of me playing an attorney. Look at this role of me playing, an action star or whatever it is, instead of trying to make them envision you in that role when they probably have all these other actors they're familiar with that they would rather bring in and put in those roles. Yeah. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And then plus we have the one thing about the things that I'm working on is that I have a plethora of friends already in the business. So when we go to cast, it ain't gonna be no hard thing. You know what I mean? Maybe 1 through 5, maybe on the casting sheet, 1 through 5 is where we want to get a big name. And that may be, something that we have to deal with. But as far as the rest, the people who can get paid for a month or a week or a day, got all that.
Yeah.
Got them all.
Yeah. And that's what me and Johnny talk about is you see a lot of people who are self-creators, they hire their friends, again, the people they came up with, the people that they've been training with. So if I'm writing something or I'm doing a project, who do I call? I'm working on a project right now. And I'm like, yo, Johnny, come do this thing with me. Hey, Black or whatever it is, you're gonna reach out to the people that are around you. So that's very good advice. And I know it seems obvious, but a lot of us who've been in the business a long time, for some it's been a difficult transition for them. They've always been dependent on the auditioning process to move forward and to do anything. And that, I'm not saying that way is dead, but the industry is kind of showing you that that's not how they've pretty much been doing it, hiring their own friends anyway for a long time.
For a long time, man.
They just say it's an audition, but they already know who they want or who they have in mind. Right. Maybe one of those roles is somebody that they actually find. Yeah. But everybody else, when you go into the casting offices, you can look at the board of they already know who they want in those parts. They're just waiting to see if they're available.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's oftentimes people that you trust. You know what I mean? I mean, if I hired you two, I'd be like, I trust them, so I ain't got no issues. They're gonna come in, they're gonna do their thing, and that's what it's gonna be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You said something interesting before we went live, and Johnny doesn't even know this. You made a business decision and moved to New Orleans. Would you elaborate on that?
Sure. So I had, and why elaborate on this? I'll give you another part of it that is very important for people to understand. When I saw the business leaving California, the runaway business, runaway production, I should say. They were going to Atlanta, New Orleans. I had done a job in Mexico, and as the opportunities in LA became far and in between, I said to myself, hey man, go to New Orleans, go to the southeast for a while, And once I had made that decision, instantly people were like, well, Black, you doing well out here, and why would you go there, and why would you risk what you have here? In all actuality, there was no risk in leaving.
Yeah.
There was no risk at all. It was going where production was. And that's the thing I think people are afraid of, is opinion about their own success. It is your success, man. That's all you can worry about, is yours at this point, is your success. And even if I didn't, I just don't know how to measure success when there's freedom, my choice involved. So if I chose to go, the success is I chose to go.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Yes.
And for you guys who are listening, one of the advantages of leaving California and going to another state, you can then become a local hire. And that a lot of times is cheaper for production, instead of hiring an actor from Hollywood and flying them out there and putting them up. if they can find a talented local hire like James, that's a way to get in there. And actually, Adeline, this is not taking anything away. It's less competition too. You know what I mean? Those places, and you come from LA, you got the chops, you were doing well in LA, and now you're a big fish in a small pond. So, like you said, you didn't really have any movie stuff on your resume. And then what happens when you go to New Orleans?
Yeah, I went from in the course of 4 years, I went from 3 shorts and 2 movies to 30 movies.
Wow.
So, yeah. So,
Let that sink in.
Yeah. So it was beneficial, and it still is. I still have relationships down there.
Yeah.
If the project's right, they say, James, can you come down? We'll get you somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come down. It's not. I'm cool now. It's all right.
So when you made a transition, were you then at that point represented by someone? Not the Ed Hawkins, or
no, Ed was gone by then.
Ed was gone. So
but I had made a blind call to an agent, and down south, and I told her who I was. I didn't know Ed Hawkins, just straight James Moses Black. And she says, well, when you get down here, give me a call. I flew out the next weekend, and I knocked on the door. It's like, I'm here. You know what I mean? So what we doing?
Yeah.
And,
Did you know anybody in New Orleans before you made that transition?
No.
Wow.
That's why I stayed in the Quarter, man. I thought the Quarter was like the safest place for me to stay, believe it or not, because it's so transient. There were so many people in and out of the city, people from everywhere. So I plotted down right in there, man. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember, Ruben, I was trying to get repped out there. I was in Columbia, South Carolina for a while, for a year. I spent a year out there. And it was at a time when it was accidental. I moved back to that area at the time. My wife wanted to go back and be around her family with our young daughter. So, but it just happened to be at that point where the transition was happening in the Southeast, and I met with I wish I could remember their name. They're one of the top casting agencies. They've been out there in that area for 25, 30 years. They're in Wilmington, North Carolina. I can't remember their name, but I went and met with them. Somebody else hooked me up from here. And the only thing was they were like, hey, well, we're getting a lot of California people out here now, but you came out here for a different reason. And they were like, but I remember the one guy saying specifically, he goes, but look, I'm not gonna, if you want your rep in LA to submit you while you're out here, that's fine, but I'm not gonna, I think he used the term carpet bag, the agencies that I've had a relationship with. He goes, so it would behoove you to find a rep out here, because I'm gonna get that submission. I'm gonna go with them first.
Sounds like Fincannons.
What's that?
That sounds like Mark Fincannon, who you're talking about.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. And I'll tell you, it was the weirdest thing, man. I submitted my stuff. I mean, this is post, after I had done a lot of work and I had been on Mad TV and things. And they, the agency seemed very excited, but I never got a rep that year that I was there, whether commercials or theatrical. I know it was a weird. They were like, send us your resume and everything and your whatever reels you have, and this is great that you're out here. And then nothing. It was, and I don't know if it was a Hispanic thing. I don't know if it went, because as I looked at everybody's, who they represented management or agency wise, I mean, it was either white or black. You know what I mean? It was very, very few Hispanics. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I have no idea, but there was very, very few and far between, but I just never got that. I wanted to try stuff out there because there was a lot going on in Louisiana and Texas and of course Atlanta, So yeah, man, that's good. I mean, that's great that you got in there like that and just good.
Yeah, and James, how long were you in New Orleans? How long did you stay there?
I was there from the beginning of beginning of 2014 to the beginning of 2018, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Now,
so like 4 or 5 years.
one thing that we ask a lot of guests on the show, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, career moments, but like defining moments are things that, you know, just shifted your life. Would you consider your move to New Orleans a turning point in your life and in your career?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. One of the best decisions I ever made was to make a decision and to go to New Orleans. And it just ended up being the best decision, man. You know,
Wow.
just from a exposure point of view of seeing a different culture, different city, and then learning more about myself and then getting jobs. Because the confidence about what I do is knowing more about me. I don't get a job pretending to be anybody except who we've agreed on my daily rate to be. You know what I mean? So if you say, well, we want you to do this in this part, it's a propensity. We all have a propensity to do something, you know. What keeps us back is our character, you know. So if it's a criminal or something like that, that's we can get wired. We're wired like that. So there's no sense in me. And our game is about imagination, right? That's our game. My game as an actor is imagination. Imagine you being this. And I learned more about myself in New Orleans in 4 or 5 years than I had given myself credit that was built inside of me. So it was a pivotal moment for me going to New Orleans.
So go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, and then so you were there and you did almost 4 or 5 years, and then what was it that you came back to LA, correct?
I said if I stayed another year in New Orleans, I was gonna die. I was gonna die, man. I felt it. I was like, I'm out of here, man. I was, woo, man. Let me tell you, man, you can go down there. You can go down to New Orleans if you want, man. But if you're an alcoholic or you got anything that's just, you know,
any vice,
man.
Yeah,
yeah, they will feed your vices, man.
They will feed your vices, man.
So one thing that I noticed and was very proud is when I saw you on 24, the 24 Legacy on Fox, the reboot of 24 that had the brother as the lead. That
Corey Hawkins.
Corey Hawkins, yeah, that kind of took over for.
no relation to Ed.
No. I did hit him up. I said, "Are you my?" No, you ain't my.
So that to me, I mean, I wouldn't say, I don't know if you consider it your big break, but I remember seeing you on that. And I was so proud, and I was like, now this is going to get James some major exposure to lead to other work. Do you consider that one of your first big jobs, or what role do you consider like, okay, really put you out there?
Surprisingly, it was a big job, but because of the show fizzling, it didn't. It just exposed more about, you know, my ability to be, you know, an actor, my gift as an actor, but it didn't lead to anything except like overbite stuff like you that I know
Overbite.
That's all of that too. Didn't lead to nothing else except snap finger famous, as Kevin Hart said. I know you. Like, you know, and I was working at a restaurant, so it's like, I know you. I was like, okay, good. So what do you want for dessert?
So what role would you point to that led you to that really opened up some doors for you out of all the work that you've done?
That's a good question. I don't.
Isn't it funny? Because it's never one thing, right? It's the accumulation of a lot of work and relationships.
Yeah, I watched a lot of cats like whiz past me, you know what I mean, in terms of exposure. Like I was Michael B. Jordan's father on Cold Case, right? And they had the whole crew from The Wire on Cold Case, right? I'm like, Dad, everybody's here. Bubs is here, he's here, and I'm like, and I mean, I killed the show, right? I killed the show, but I was like, so Mike, man, if you need anything while you out here in LA, let me know. Like 2 months later, he was on with the Friday Night Lights thing on CBS, the football thing.
NBC, yeah.
NBC.
Yeah.
And he's like, yo, Black, if you need anything, let me know. I was like, bro, you know. But there hasn't been even with Black and Blue, it hasn't been. People are just still going like, that's what they're doing.
I think that's what work does for you. You know what I mean? And Johnny's experiences also, when you work and you get on television, as we all been blessed to do, and do films, you know, you always get, you know, even after a comedy show or walking down the street or in a coffee shop, they go, hey, aren't you? Like somebody sent me a clip of something that I did in my DM, a clip of me. Was like, I had no idea that was you. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like work begets work. And that's, I think that goes back to your original point. If we're just as actors or performers just relying on getting picked by a casting director, then that's a long road to travel, as opposed to, you know what, I just want to work. Let me create some projects. Let me do a short. Let me do a web series.
Yeah.
Let me do whatever it is. So I'm working in those relationships. You just never know who you're connected to. You could be working with a DP that ends up working on a major motion picture that goes, hey, I worked with this actor, man, on this short, man, and then they'll call you up and, hey, dude, I dropped your name. Call this person. Yeah. They'll see you. And you just never know what's going to lead you to the next thing. So I really appreciate your answer going, hey, man, I just work. Nothing really like blew me up or go, we remember the person from this role. It's like the relationships you make on that journey that will lead to other jobs. And, you know, hopefully soon that one big breakout role will find its way to your door or my door or Johnny's door. But it's about working in the interim.
Yeah. I think that when you ask me, there's two things, not shows, but two things that kind of helped me propel forward. One was I normalize what I do. I normalize it. So if I do get a job, it's what I expect.
Yeah.
Right? It is not a gift. It is not something or
a favor.
It's what I made myself. I had to come to the conclusion that I have to start expecting this stuff.
Yes.
And then now it's normalized, right? And the other thing that helped me a lot in my career was trusting myself. I trust myself now, right? If I'm in an audition and I feel like doing something that I want to do, you know, because it intrinsically comes out, I do it. Yeah. I don't hold myself back no more. You know what I mean? So I completely trust myself.
Yeah, it's overcoming that fear.
Yeah, you know? That I gotta make something up for you to like it. And I think the word they used to use is like, we want to see you. Right? Like, what does that mean? Standing right in front of you. What you talking about?
Yeah.
No, we want to see you. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. You know.
Yeah. So, what does James bring to that role?
Right.
What is James's version of that character? What is Johnny's version of that character? What is my version of that character? And that's a hard lesson to learn. And I think, you know, getting back to the point of trusting yourself, that's one thing. Sometimes, you know, everybody has a different journey, but that's sometimes what's good about having an acting coach and going, you know, the joke is you go to acting class to learn how not to act, you know, when you get a good teacher and it's like, yo, you have the talent, you have everything necessary, just get out of your own way and do the work, understand the character, understand the history, where they came from, who they are, whatever background work you need to do, and then bring yourself to that character because they want to see you in that character. So it goes back to like, we want to see you. We wrote the character. We know who the character is.
Right.
We want to see you in that character. Can you fit into these clothes?
Yeah.
And going back to acting class the past year has been one of the best things that I've done, just because, you know, when you get out and you're not working, you're not acting like I used to, you know, you lose confidence because you're not working. You know what I mean? You got to get back and go, you know what? I am good. I am talented. I do bring something to the table that other people don't bring to the table. So I'm excited about those opportunities, you know, to come. So transitioning to Black and Blue, which I watched and again was happy. Yes, I always get happy when I see my friends. Johnny Stairs, I never watched him on Mad TV. And I recorded every single episode of Mad TV when he was on there and watched every episode. I hate to say that out loud and admit it. I was just so, because I know Johnny's journey and I know what he's been through, and we've, you know, been on the phone and you know, gone through the frustration. So when you see your friend winning, it almost feels like a victory for you, even though Johnny didn't return my phone calls on time when he was on Mad TV. But that's a whole.
Hey man, it was long hours, bro. Those were long hours.
You know, I'd call Johnny on Monday, and then he'd call me the next month, like on a Tuesday. Like, really? 4 weeks, bro? 4 weeks to get a phone call back. But anyway, but you one thing that me and Johnny were laughing about when we were talking, and I mentioned to you, you played a lot of military roles and cops. And, you know, obviously in the time we're in now in our country, you know, what do you think it is? Was it just a look, or what was it about James Moses Black that every damn time I turned on the TV, you're a cop or in a military uniform?
Psychotic. Psychotic. He's psychotic, man. This dude on one show we talk about, I don't believe that you can do this, but you makes I do. I can tell you that. And then the next show, he's like, get your ass there. You know, psychotic, man. They'd be like, he's psychotic, man. Let's just bring him in, because all we gotta do is give him the words. It's all built up in his head anyway, and in his heart. So we just gotta give him the words. But I think, man, it's just it's imagination, man. It's imagination. And listen, if you tell me a comedian, an actor, a performer who's not a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying crazy as dismissive. I can't explain it. I'm saying crazy that you don't do the same things as we do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I might be looking at a commercial, all of a sudden I put myself in the commercial, you know, or someone says something on TV, all of a sudden I'm replying to what they said in the TV. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that gives me sort of an advantage. And then the other advantage is I know every sort of I'm not gonna call it dialogue, but how to use any dialogue associated with my color. So if it's African, West Indies, Jamaican, I can do all those accents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the only one
you know that's what you're gonna be called in for, you know, so you're prepared.
So can you do an African accent? Don't talk to me. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's Jamaican. You know, they're like, yeah, I'll do it like that. They're like, wow, he can do a Jamaican accent too.
Yeah.
When that was purposeful, you know, I'll spill a little bit of the Jamaican, and no, I meant to go. Let me do the African part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, just
the problem is I can do all those voices, but they don't see me as any of those roles. Like, nah, we don't think you're Nigerian, but I can do it. It doesn't matter. Shit, I'm Haitian. They don't even think I'm Haitian. So
yeah,
it's just, I mean, being black. I mean, being as black as you, it sounds fucked up for me to say it that way.
Well, it is.
Being dark skin has helped you, you know. So tell me about the role in Black and Blue and playing a crooked cop. But we're in a time now in our.
If you put on English like you're from London, they would believe that, because they would believe that. I would believe that.
Oh, if I went in with a British
London accent, a British accent,
yeah,
you know. But anyway, So after you called me black, what did you want me to
Wait a minute. Well, hey, why don't you give a little bit of the Latino thing you do? You could be Dominican. Remember your C?
See,
C. There you go.
I don't know.
By the way,
Yanni, I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. One time I was doing an audition and I just decided to just play it like myself. And then I remember the lady, she was like, yeah, that's not going to cut it for this character. He's, he's a hardworking guy, Mexican-American. And I just knew exactly. And as soon as, and Rube, the traditional Mexican guy that's a gardener or, a cook or whatever. And the minute I was like, let me try this. And then I went in there. And I had no idea this was going to happen. She goes, oh, my goodness, that's it. And I remember getting a call back for that immediate. She was like, we're going to bring you back in. That's it. And I was like, and I was trying to stay away from that. You know what I mean? But
what was interesting, just piggybacking what Johnny's saying and in your experiences, James, is, unfortunately with the climate, fortunately with the climate changing in our country and the systemic racism that has been, a part of our country since the beginning, is how we're even casted in roles. They look at Blacks and Latinos as one certain type, like we're all the same. And sometimes it's been very, obviously actors have broken out of those, boxes, but for the most part, it's still something that we deal with today, where a white casting director can look at me in the face and say, you're not Black enough. Bitch, how the fuck do you know what Black enough? You're not Black. Like, we're not all the same. Every Black person, hey, yo, it's like whatever their stereotype is, it's like we have to come in and fill that stereotype. And me and Johnny were just talking about Bruce Lee before we came on air. We saw his documentary on ESPN.
Oh, Be Like
Be Like Water. And he was dealing with that same stuff, and he got to a point in his career where he wasn't going to play any stereotypical Asian roles. And people don't realize, like, that is an issue in Hollywood. Of you have people that really know nothing about your culture, but what they've seen, in a music video or in some snippet, and they just boil down the whole race to whatever that stereotype is in their head, and it gets frustrating. And when you playing, a cop, and well, hopefully that's changing now with everybody calling out all this bullshit that we're dealing with. What was it like for you to play? Like, I know you've alluded to your imagination, but what was it like for you to play a crooked cop? Do you know any cops? How did they feel about you playing that role? What did you do any research? What were those conversations like?
Well, as long as you know that, this is when I'm on TV, it is TV or film. As long as you know that, then you won't come up to me crazy.
Yeah.
As long as you know that, let's leave it right there. I think, playing this. So I had some. Dion and I had some differences about the dude's what he would actually do, and it's just based on hood law. Some of it was based on seeing somebody else executed, and then they were like you, they were your color. So I had some differences in my head. When they popped the kid, I turned away, even though I was crooked. I was like, that kind of like got to me a little bit, you know what I mean? It's like the dude that the Black dude that was in the guard uniform, and they went up to him just recently, and they was talking. You could see he was about to break down on just the recent protest.
Yeah,
that guy, he had all the gear on, and they just kept getting at him, like, you ain't supposed to do. And you could tell he was about to break down. But our conflict was, about, even though I'm crooked, I do have a heart. You know what I mean? And these things that were affecting the community that we had infiltrated as criminals as well. But you see a murder, that I don't care who you are. If you have a heart, that's going to affect you. So,
but he wanted it played more like you, like, just
it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I I was like,
no heart.
No heart, right?
Yeah.
After I just sat down with the cop, the woman cop, and told her that she's not black, she's blue. You know, after I have all this compassion about her, I have none about this kid. So that was kind of conflicted for me. But I said, yeah, listen, I'm going to take this money and get out of here. You know, you do it your way. And then there was another scene where in the hood, if you pull a gun out on somebody, you only get to do that once. Twice, you're going to have issues. And then, you know, you're going to have an issue. And so when the dude pulled the gun on me the first time, and then we were doing something else, and he pulled it again, like I pulled my gun out. I was like, this is gonna be a standoff here, man. And so he didn't want that in there. And I was like, okay, bro. At this point, I was like, yeah, let me just do it your way, however you want it, and we'll get to rolling. And then they had a forum, in which we talked about. Listen, I think, and I'm just commenting on two things: the film and reality. When people say defund, they're not saying get rid of.
People don't understand that. People don't understand
right.
that.
I don't want to get rid of the police.
Yeah.
You know
right.
What I'm saying? I would rather for them to be equitable people, that they do things based on protection of society, not discriminating against society. So that was when we talked about the film. I was like, we need the police and they need us. It's just that simple, you know.
And let me make this clear. When people are saying defund the police, again, what James is saying, they're just talking about reallocating funds to different things. We spend so much money on the police that takes away from education,
schools, and stuff. Yeah,
all kind of things. And we have to understand the way that policing has been done in this country hasn't been done properly.
Right.
And that's not a knock on all cops. This isn't an attack on all police officers.
No.
The system isn't fair for everyone. And I think the problem is when you're white in this country and your experiences are so much different with the police, it's hard to relate to our reality. You know, like I've told Johnny stories, and me and him have talked where, you know, when, you know, I'd be in the car with my white friend and get pulled over, they were just shocked on how different the experience was for me. They're like, man, cops never talk to me like that. Like, bruh, that's what fucking black people have been trying to tell you, you know, since you've been alive. You know, our experiences are usually different. Not every single time. Not every cop is that way. But unfortunately, it's more so than not from my experience. And obviously from Richard Pryor's experience. And obviously from our great-grandpa. Like, it goes on and on and on.
Right.
You know, where you can play a routine of Richard Pryor and he goes, white folks be friends with the police. You know what I mean? Just a bit off like that shows you that there's a difference, but then they try to convince you in 2020 that it's all made up and it's all the media. Well, the media wasn't there when the cop punched me in my face. I've been assaulted by a police officer. I used to get guns pulled on me. I won't say all the time, but quite frequently. When they would come to my car, guns would be drawn. That's just how they policed us.
And this was at that bad time. Well, it's all been bad for a long time, but this is around the late 80s, early 90s kind of era, right? But
you know, I've had guns pulled on me as an adult, not as much, you know, because I live in a different area and maybe those
different
come into play. But in 2020, I can tell you, Johnny, when I leave the Laugh Factory and I'm driving home, I'm conscious of the route that I drive home.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to get pulled over by the police. And I have no warrants. My registration is up to date. I have, you know, my driver's license is up to date. You know, insurance, everything. I'm fine. I haven't been drinking or nothing, but there's some areas that go, I'm not going to go that way because I can get pulled over by the cops. Right. And that's a reality for black people. James, you got the non-cop route home, I'm sure, wherever you go.
Yeah, man. And another point to that is, imagine if you or I, or even Johnny, because you're brown. Imagine if you had 18 brushes with the law. Where would you be right now?
Yeah.
Where would you be? You be in jail. You be in jail. I be in jail. If I had 18 brushes,
Yeah.
and I just did another one, you be in jail. And
Yeah.
that's what the reforms are. You can't let an individual be guilty of doing something to another person and saying, okay, we can't take you, but Arkansas probably could take you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all reform. If
Yeah.
I got 18 things against me, those 18 things are going to follow me throughout the United States.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
And it's sad when people discount and dismiss your experience. Mm-hmm. Like we're exaggerating or we're blowing it out of proportion, and they want to take on this whole perspective of we're trying to paint everybody with one brush. But you've been painting our community with one brush since the beginning of time, since we've been in this country. Yeah. And it's very frustrating. And Johnny knows this. I have a godfather who was one of the first Black detectives on the LAPD. He became the detective on the police commission, very accomplished. But he was a cop, but he was a human being first and a Black man second. And his treatment, being in the force when it was segregated, et cetera, he understood, some of the problems, and he was a good cop. He was one of the ones who would speak out and say something. But a lot of times, man, these police officers are worse than gangs. Where, in the hood, they say no snitching. They say the same shit amongst cops.
That's right. Yeah.
No snitching. Protect the badge. When you know that you're seeing something being done wrong. And then we know for a fact, the FBI has uncovered this, that there's lots of white supremacists who joined the police force. And the police force for Black people for a lot of years has been an extension of slavery. When they used to hunt down slaves, the slave catchers, that's what the police has morphed into. When they gave us our freedom, they made other things more difficult, and they turned the jails, into an extension of slavery where you have cheap labor, even to this day.
I think one of the things that Black and Blue brought out is the inconsistency of what do they call the things they wear? What is the thing called?
The shield? Body cam?
Body cam.
Body cam.
Because, it's inconsistent. There's no sort of consistent application of wearing that body cam across the United States. You still haven't seen the one that came out on Floyd yet. There's a body cam one that hasn't been released.
And the irony, and how about the irony of the brother that got killed at the protest in Louisville, who had the barbecue place,
right?
And the cops killed him, and none of the body cams were on.
None of the body cams.
Conveniently,
and that should be mandated. I mean, a lot of things people aren't also thinking about. A lot of people is that the dudes in Georgia who killed Aubrey, one of them was an ex-cop.
Yeah.
One of them was a cop.
And had a relationship with the
district attorney.
Yeah.
He was also, right.
I mean, I was like, wow, I wonder is anybody really thinking about that when we talk about, racism in the police force. And someone says that 99.9% of all the police in America are not racist.
Yeah.
Now, come on, man. That's almost as ridiculous as saying 99% of all cops in America are bad. That is almost as ridiculous as saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting times, man. Like just being here, we talked briefly off air, and I don't know if me and Johnny even discussed it. Going to a protest was very moving, and I felt led to do it. Johnny knows I have not been around people since March. I really isolated myself, for following directions and through the COVID protocols. I'm one of the people who follow the rules. Unfortunately, sometimes me and Johnny talk about we're the ones who always follow the rules when people do whatever they want to do, whether it be in showcases and whatever. I'm always the guy that does it. And I'm learning now that I'm going to do whatever I feel. But in this COVID thing, you should follow the rules, I believe. But the point I'm making is I just felt compelled to go to this protest. and people are saying that it's violent, and the president has people believing that Antifa is a real organization when Antifa just stands for anti-fascist. So it can be literally anybody. It's not an organized group, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm saying that all to say there was so much love in unity out there, and it was overwhelming to look to your left and look to your right and see people from all different walks of life for a common cause. And as a Black man, to see white people, to see Latinos, to see Asians that care and are finally starting to understand that what we've been saying for years is not false, and it isn't in our head, and it isn't some media concoction or manipulation of CNN or MSNBC or whatever liberal outlet, that our true voices and experiences are being heard and recognized, and it's global. And that, to me, to be a part of that really meant a lot, and it was empowering, and it gives me hope for the future. You know, Johnny, what were your experiences when you went out?
Yeah, I went to this was I accidentally got stuck on that very early one on Fairfax and Beverly. I didn't even know that one was happening, and I was driving, and it was one of those moments, man, where when you watch sometimes they'll march onto a freeway or a major boulevard, and then there's those people that are stuck, and sometimes there's good people, and then there's people who are assholes, and they start shaking your car or doing whatever. Yeah. And I came up on that and I saw everybody was kind of in the street, and I was nervous for a second because I just was like, what would I do if people started, getting around the car and moving it, or what, you know what I mean? So that one I didn't know about that one. I ended up getting out of that. And then I went to the one, and that's when the looting all happened over there on Melrose and Fairfax. And it was bad. That was about a week and a half ago now, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. And but I went to the one here on Sunset and Laurel, which is right near me, and that was fantastic, man. And Ruben knows. I mean, I'm probably even worse than Ruben, James, when it comes to someone could say there's a Corona cold, and I'd be covered up for months.
Yeah.
So,
and let me just say, Johnny is a convenient protester. His protests have been literally right outside of this place.
I went to the Breonna Taylor one and the one right here, right? But it was fantastic. By the way, the ones I went to though, Rube. I know you said a lot of people weren't wearing masks at some of them, but man, even as I looked at the videos that I posted, everybody that was around me did have their masks on. You know what I mean? But it was a great feeling to be a part of a peaceful protest, by the way.
Yes.
That felt fantastic. You know what I mean? And
Susan chimed in. She said, at the march I went to, some white people were happy to join us as we walked through Beverly Hills. A few definitely felt genuine. So that was cool.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the thing, man, is, through all this hurt and pain that we're going through as a country and, as a community, we know that, no pain, no gain. That's been taught to us athletes who've played, that, you have to go through something to get to the good. So I'm just really hopeful and optimistic that through all this, good will come from it. Laws will be changed. People's views, our eyes might be open. I think a lot of white America is realizing it's not enough to be non-racist. You have to be anti-racist. And being anti-racist involves action. You can stay home all day and go, oh, I'm not racist, and not do anything and not call out injustice when you see it. And a friend of mine said something was like, well, what can I do? I said, just calling out bullshit when you see it. When you come into a restaurant and they come directly to you and go, may we seat you, and you see a Black couple there, why not go, hey, have they been seated yet? Have they been taken care of?
Little things like that, yeah.
Little things like that, because Black people, we see that bullshit all the time, where we come, we're waiting to get served, and then they'll sit 3 or 4 white couples and be like, hello? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't see you. Oh, you didn't see the only Black people in the whole entire restaurant? You didn't see us? Are you sitting at a table and everybody's fucking table gets bread and water and you haven't even got menus yet and you've been sitting there? So when you notice some of that, maybe go, hey, have they been? I noticed they were there before me. A friend of mine told me a very simple kind of. He was so upset about it, and I'll share the story. A buddy of mine went to Kinko's during this pandemic, and people are outside before they're being let in, for the social distancing. He's in there. He gets one thing done. And then he tries to get another thing done while he's in there. And they go, oh, you can only do one. Like he had to get a box and then mail it out or something like that. They tried to tell him he can only do one transition at a time. Only one transaction at a time. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Which is bullshit. So he kind of looked. He was curious. They go, yeah, you're going to have to go back outside now. He goes, wait a minute. I stood in line. I came in. I got a box. Now I got to go re-stand in line outside to mail the box out. He said he looked and he saw it wasn't a long line. So as the, not wanting to be the angry black guy, he goes and he gets back in line. After he goes and gets back in line, he finally is ready to mail his thing. A white guy goes, this is ridiculous. I need to get out of here. And walks right by him and puts it on there. And he goes, hey! And the guy who sent him outside earlier goes, it's going to be real quick. He said, what? He said, yeah, real quick. He said, sir, he has 2 boxes. I have 1. Yeah, it's going to be real quick. I said, dude, you better than me. I'd have lost my mind in that place.
Yeah.
But the reason why he didn't say anything, because of society, he didn't want to be the angry black guy. And that's the shit that we eat on a daily basis. And I always say this on stage, and Johnny knows this. I go, if black people reacted to every racist situation that occurred, we'd be reacting every day. We pick and choose the shit that we wow out on. Yeah, and that's what people don't know. So a lot of times when a black person finally loses his shit, that's probably the 8th thing that happened that day.
Yeah.
Like you said, if when you're talking about a police officer who's had 18 different shit that's happened in the course of their career, and they still have, they haven't been reprimanded, or they've only gotten 1 write-up or whatever.
2, I think he had 2. Yeah.
2. Yeah. 2 out of the 18. Matter of fact, the other guy, Thao, the Asian dude, had 6 or 8, but 1 was still pending. One's open currently, and he was out there. But Ruben had explained that to me one time before too, and I was like, "Yeah, Ruben, we got on that thing about complying. Remember?"
Yes.
And I was like, "I know, Ruben. I just feel like some of these dudes are like, man, they're yelling at the cop, and they're not doing it." And for me, I just was like, I only get pulled over X amount of times, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm always like, hey, man, okay, over here, put my hand, But Ruben had explained to me, he said, Johnny, what if you keep getting pulled over all the time, and you keep getting pulled over? Somehow each week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, something's going on again. You don't have a tail light out. You weren't speeding. Oh, we just were there. There was a burglar. That thing got used on me. That 2 times I got pulled over. There's a burglary around here allegedly.
You fit the description.
There you go. Right. So when Ruben explained, I go, oh, and Ruben said, Johnny said, just think about that, man. Maybe it is the 18th time that you've actually been pulled over or stopped while you're riding a bicycle. Remember your situation?
Oh man, this dude. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But Ruben explained it to me. I go, oh, and I had not really thought about it like that because no one had explained it to me like that. Ruben goes, Johnny, that guy, that black dude that is yelling at the cop or is like, what do you want? What is this shit? It's the straw that breaks the back at that point. And I went, oh, okay. I would be the same. Like after X amount of times, I would have lost it too, on that police officer,
And I've had this conversation, and James, you can jump in.
I'm enjoying listening to this. With my white friends, I go, hey man, what if every day you came to school, and remember we used to do this in school, somebody slapped you on the back of your neck every day.
Let me go back.
So if you remember we used to do that, or used to flick somebody.
Oh, the flicking of the ear.
So we were all that shit we used to do in school. So if somebody did that to you every day, at some point you're gonna say, the next motherfucker who flicks me in my ear is gonna catch hell. And when you're constantly being harassed for no reason, and it's by different cops and everything, and somebody pulls you over and they ask you to get out the car, and you're like, for what?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
Why do I got to get out of the car? For what?
And then he's going, whoa, calm down. Don't be aggressive.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, and why do you have your gun out?
Yeah.
I posted a video. You guys can look at on my Facebook page or on my IG page. I related to this brother so much. He's like, dude, why do you have your fucking gun out, man? Why are you coming to the car with your gun out? Yeah. Anything can happen. Yeah. Your hand is on the trigger, dude.
Yeah.
For what? A stop sign?
Yeah.
Your gun is out for a fucking stop sign. Because you see my black skin, so I'm a threat. Because you're terrified. And why are cops so fucking scared? Why are cops always, that's like a boxer not wanting to get hit. Why the fuck are you a cop if you're so afraid? They're so afraid. And like I said the other day, your job is to not get home safely to your family. That's not your job. Your job is to protect and serve. That's your job. Yeah. You're the one who chose the dangerous profession, and we all respect that. But your job ain't to get home to your family. Your job is to do your job. You can't go to McDonald's or anything else and hey man, that's not my job. My job is to just get home to my family safely at the end of this shift. It's not to serve you these burgers and fries. Everybody's job has a job description. And when you apply for that job, do your job. Yeah. Of course, everybody wants to get home alive to their family at the end of the day. Our lives are always in danger every day. Blacks more than most in this country. But at the end of the day, like, we all want the same thing. So why become a cop if you're so terrified? Why join the military if you don't want, nobody wants to go to war, but you got to be prepared and know that could be a part of it. Yes. So whatever your occupation is, know what that is. You just can't use the excuse, I'm in fear for my life. And especially when you're terrified of unarmed black people, but yet you find a way to arrest violent white criminals when you know that you're coming to a scene where shots have been fired and casualties have been reported, but yet they're coming in safely, and you're killing people just guessing that they might, where everybody thinks black people are armed.
Yeah. Or for allegedly a counterfeit $20 bill.
Yeah, and then people are trying to paint George Floyd as a criminal. What the fuck does that have to do with getting choked out on the street when he didn't? It wasn't a violent crime. It wasn't like he shot a store owner,
or he held a gun, or even armed. It wasn't even armed robbery if he had a weapon.
Well, and I just think and black people aren't saying that we shouldn't be arrested for doing wrong, that criminals shouldn't be arrested. We're not saying that, but you can't be the judge, the jury, and the executioner right there on the fucking sidewalk. Yeah. That's not your job. Yeah. Your job is to bring him into custody and let the judicial system, which we know is corrupt also, take its course. But you can't take that responsibility on yourself to be the judge, jury, and executioner just because you, quote unquote, were afraid for your life. And how are you afraid for your life? Why does it take so many guys to take down these little black? It's frustrating, man. And I hate that George Floyd, needlessly lost his life. But if it took that to wake people up around the globe to what's been happening for a long time in our communities, when they come up with these ridiculous black on black crime stats, which is absolutely asinine. Yeah. Like, white people don't kill white people and Asians don't kill Asians, but we're the only ones that has a title for it. And then they come up with these statistics, not knowing that these statistics are manipulated to make whatever point they want to make. And and here's the thing, we let the people, it's like you would never there's an old, I think, African adage is never let the lion tell the sheep's story. So, because, that story is always going to be to their favor. And that's kind of what we're going through in this country. Everybody looks at like all cops are like these honorable people. They're just human beings, man. I got friends who got their fucking GED that are cops. And not saying that all cops aren't educated, but I'm just saying that they're not clergymen. Yeah. Pastors are not, moral. I mean, cops are not moral leaders. There are bad cops out there, and we're seeing this, and it's too many. I don't know. I'm getting worked up, man, but
Yeah.
I just want things to change, man, because I have friends from all different walks of life, and it's just about being human. But if we're not all being treated human, and I'm not being treated fairly, it's incumbent upon you to speak out also. And that's what we're seeing in this movement, is other people finally going, yo, man, I hear what you're saying. We're not going to stay silent. We're going to stand with you. We're going to march with you. We're going to fight with you. We're going to speak out with you and for you, because it isn't Black people that need to change it. It's this white supremacist system that we're all under. So we need white people to step up, because it's just noise coming from us at this point. They've heard us complain. We've become, oh, here's Black people complaining again. It's Black people playing the victim. It's Black people. But it has to take others to speak up and say, this isn't right. It isn't fair. And if anybody thinks that this system of justice is fair and it's equal across the board, you're lying to yourself. Yeah. Period. Point blank. If you think for one moment that it's fair, you think our history books are accurate and all the shit that you learn, it's not. Go out and learn about the truth. That's what's happening. The things that we accept in this country, racist monuments that have been put up that we just kind of ignore and go along with it. I said this the other day, and I know this is not going to be popular, but if we're really serious about racism and shit like that, there shouldn't be a Columbus Day. Right. We shouldn't be celebrating Thanksgiving. It shouldn't be the Washington Redskins. There's a lot of things, man. If we're really serious about just erasing systematic racism that we unconsciously support in our country, and we just go along with it. And I'm not afraid to say it. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. And we all know Thanksgiving is fucked up. We all know it. We all know it. But we still look forward to it. Yeah. I look forward to Thanksgiving every year, man. I'm ashamed because it's fucked up.
I think 23andMe is kind of messed up.
23andMe.
I thought about it the other day. It's called 23andMe. It's essentially called you and me. Right? 23 people identify themselves. You need something to identify yourself with. You know what I'm saying? So you get on this thing and you find out that you Black. That was a waste of $69, but 23 other people didn't do it.
99 for 23andMe.
Out if you Black.
And here's the thing, man.
There's so much outrageousness, and I'm just going to say this as a Christian man. There's so much outrageousness. I think one of the things that people typically forget is that God has an adversary, right? We all know who his adversary is, and his main goal is to take all you people away from the belief in God. And it divides all these things for you to follow and you get upset. So your attention does not become focused on God anymore, but your own selfless or selfishness or your own things that he's created for you to divert your attention. And again, I am saying this to preach to you in a sense, but I'm also saying this is to you can't get diverted. You can't allow yourself to be diverted and to take all these things that God's adversary has put up and say, that's the reason for this, and that's the reason. And we know that God has an adversary. So all I'm saying is don't let Satan take your attention away from what God is providing and what he will provide. You don't think God sees all this stuff? You don't think he sees this and understands what's going on? This is going to change. It's going to change.
Yeah.
That the anxiety is just thinking that this is just a mere human. And in cases, these are people who are putting these things forward. But the anxiety is that you keep thinking that this person is, solely responsible. This human is solely responsible. It's not. Job's got an adversary, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I sense your anxiety. I see things that I get angst too, but then I have to refocus and understand, and that's why people have to get to know God a little bit more, man, and get to know him a little bit more. And because some of these anxieties are supposed to happen right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
I agree with that. And I like, it goes back to the point of no pain, no gain. You have to go through this to get to where we need to be. All these things are happening for a reason. Like I told Johnny, when you look at it, it's a pandemic and everything shuts down. I know there's all these conspiracy theories out there, but there has been some positives that come from this quarantining and people being shut down, the healing of the planet and not all the smog and, all the smog, a lot of the smog is dissipated. A lot of the things that we were doing that isn't good for the earth had stopped for a period of time. And just the outpouring of what is happening right now and people speaking out against social injustice, these things needed to happen to move forward, so we can have a better world for everybody, for, our kids and the generations to come. So, what you're saying is very true. And some things are necessary. And I think these marches and these protests and everything that's going on, even though it's uncomfortable for a lot of people, and even though it's bringing a lot of hurt and pain and anxiety, it's necessary, I think, for us to get to a better world and what we all hope for, So,
have you received? Have you read the by Leslie Dwight, the "What If 2020 Isn't Canceled"? Have you read that? Yeah.
You can read it.
Okay, for those of you who don't, it says she wrote, "What if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is a year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awaking us from our ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change, declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. 2020 isn't canceled, but rather the most important year of them all."
With that said, man,
good date.
I couldn't agree more. But James, on behalf of me and Johnny, we just want to thank you for.
Hey, Rube, one thing I know about you, Johnny, Ruben didn't tell you, I said, hey, Rube, man, take me out on the comedy circuit, bro. So come over here to what was it, on Lancashire?
Oh, the ha-ha.
Ha-ha.
So I wore a kufi. And let me just say, I was destroyed. Those people destroyed me, man. And Ruben got out there and he was like, I ain't afraid of y'all. He might have been afraid of y'all. But, Ruben's always been my dude. It's like, Black, anytime you want to come out, man, come on out, man. And I'm like, nah, bro, that last time. Nah, man, doing what you do, bro. Good, good.
Well, Black, I've said it to you before. I love you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story. I think if actors listen to this, they can get some insight and just look at things a different way. Right. And thank you for sharing your story. And Johnny, I love you, boy.
Yeah, and, same here, brother. Also, you can find James at Ed Hawkins Agency on all platforms.
Yeah, that fake agency doesn't exist, but be looking for all of us in upcoming projects. Me and James are gonna work on something together, and I'm working on other stuff, and Johnny's working on stuff. So you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts. You can find us. Please tell a friend.
Did you want to? What about James? His handles.
Yeah, James, where can people find you?
Where can they find you?
_ James Moses Black on Instagram. And if you're like 50 or 60 years old, just look me up on Facebook.
Yeah, but you guys listening, if you go to iTunes and leave comments and share the podcast with a friend, definitely helps us. And we just appreciate everybody who listens and enjoys the show. Stan, Jim.
Hey man, we gotta have James back because this was on my mind early on, but we got moved, we shifted all over. But I meant to ask, we could probably do it next time, I guess. But just one of the, your either funniest or worst audition, something that you made a choice and you afterwards realized, why did I make that choice?
Well, okay, I'm going to tell you my most recent funniest thing.
Okay.
Right? And it wasn't an audition, but we had for NAACP, we previewed Black and Blue. So it was me, Tyrese, Frank Grillo. Now Frank Grillo is Italian. Like I think he's actually more of the it starts with the S. I forget the name of it.
Sicilian.
Sicilian, yes.
Yeah.
Sicilian. So Frank comes up on stage, and I won't even talk about Tyrese. Frank gets up on stage, and he takes the mic, and it's the NAACP event, and so Frank says, "Hey, hold on, I gotta tell y'all something. I took that 23andMe test," and I'm thinking, Frank, don't. He says, "I'm 18% Nigerian chieftain." And they was like, yay. And I was like, hold up. I took that same test and they sent me a note that said, "Nigga, please." and everybody was rolling back because I was like, Frank, don't do that, bro. Was the funniest thing I've been through recently, man.
Oh, that's
hilarious, dude.
Great.
Well, thank you again, Black. Again, appreciate you.
Yeah.
And that is that's our show, guys. It's the best of everything with Ruben Paul and Johnny Sanchez. Please tell a friend. Please share. And you can watch us on YouTube, but please listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you can listen to podcasts. And we are out.
We're out.
Ruby motherfucking Tuesdays.
This show is all about diversity and bringing everyone together. You never know who you're going to see at Ruby Tuesdays.